Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. So how many of you know who Blackrock is, right? They're led by the woke CEO Larry Fink. It's the biggest hedge fund in the world with assets of over $10 trillion. And now BlackRock is leading a movement that'll send shivers down your spine. But be assured, we're going to find out precisely why it's not going to work and why their sinister plans are all doomed to fail. Many of you may have seen the James O'Keefe bombshell hidden video revelations, the inner workings of Blackrock.
They don't want to be in the news. They don't want people to talk about them. They don't want to be anywhere on the radar.
Why not?
I don't know, but I suspect it's probably because it's easier to do things when people aren't thinking about it. All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. I work for a company called Blackrock.
The revelations from the hidden camera expose were, frankly, stunning. Among the more astonishing revelations, according to this employee, you can basically buy a politician for as little as $10,000. They'll do whatever you want if you write them a check for 10 G's. Moreover, as I'm sure you guessed, the tens of billions of dollars being funneled into Ukraine are, in this guy's words, quote, good for business. Well, how could it not be, with accounting errors magically coming up with $6 billion more to share? Moreover, this guy revealed that one of the primary ways they buy off politicians is through insider trading information. That, for me, was particularly revealing. There's a little known trading secret among the experts, the insiders, right? That you always track what corporate CEOs are doing with their own company's stock. So if they're buying up a bunch of their own company's stock, that must mean that they just had a board meeting that produced numbers for an amazing sales quarter. So their stock is going to surge as soon as they report those numbers. And so all the CEOs are positioning themselves to profit from that surge. But of course, it works the other way. If we see these CEOs dumping their company's stock, then you know they had a bad quarter and they're bailing out before the stock tanks once word gets out, once the numbers get out. So what this guy revealed on hidden camera is that BlackRock gives that kind of information to politicians before the sales reports are publicly announced so they could buy or sell accordingly. And by the way, you know, you may not know this, but you and I have access to that very same inside information. Did you know that? Thanks to a little known SEC database, we can see what and when these CEOs are buying as well. Not only do we get to see it in real time, but we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the exact same advantage for ourselves. Gang, that's why you've got to click on the link below and sign up for a free training with me and my good friend Ross Givens. It's Thursday, June 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Ross is an insider trading genius whose recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Free training where you and I can learn how to trade with the exact same insider knowledge as these politicians, but legally and ethically. But don't wait. Seating registration is limited. So click on that link below right now and register today, and I'll see you for an event that promises to change your life. All right, so we learned all these things, but one thing that's particularly terrifying is BlackRock's influence over Woke Inc., the wokeification of American corporations and boardrooms. In light of the recent Bud Light and Target fiasco, along with Disney and Netflix and the like, you may have wondered why so many companies are making the perplexing financial decision to promote a woke agenda that's so obviously unpopular with consumers. Well, we need look no further than the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, who openly stated that companies must enforce certain behaviors and diversity standards, with compensation being impacted if these goals are not met.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we are doing internally is, if you don't achieve these levels of your compensation could be impacted, okay?
We're doing the same thing.
And so it's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities. And we're going to have to force change.
I mean, you heard it with your own ears. I mean, he said it himself. Essentially, BlackRock is using its massive financial and political influence to pressure companies into compliance with what are called ESG standards, which stands for environmental, social, and governance policies, which function very much like a new kind of social credit system, right? Comparable to the Chinese system that's being imposed on businesses by companies like BlackRock, as well as the WEF, the World Economic Forum. In fact, ESG standards are so sinister, Elon Musk recently remarked that the S in ESG stands for satanic. And the key here, and this is the terrifying element to what Fink just said there, the key here is that this social credit system for businesses will eventually end up paving the way for a future where individual consumers face similar social scrutiny. The WEF is already talking about it, as I've talked about it in a number of videos. The Davos managerial worldview pits the obligation to solve the problems of the world, not on governments or corporations, but rather the full brunt to change the world must be borne by you, the consumer. At any Davos gathering, over and over again, you're going to hear speakers talk about creating business conditions that, in effect, control the choices of consumers in order to, quote, make this a better world. And as we're seeing here, BlackRock is leading the way precisely to that kind of de facto social credit system. Now, the good news in all of this is that it looks more and more likely that their plans are going to fail. And that's because ESG standards are being successfully exposed as the new woke. Watch Larry Fink squirm when he was recently asked about ESG.
Let me ask you about ESG. You have been a big proponent of the importance of ESG, and there's a governor in Florida, I can't remember his name, but he wasn't a big fan of that. So has your business been hurt by the state of Florida not supporting your ESG efforts?
I don't use the word ESG anymore because it's been entirely weaponized. But it was weaponized by the far left and weaponized by the far right. So I'm not blaming one side or the other, but it's been totally weaponized. So we talk a lot about decarbonization. We talk a lot about governance when we have governance issues or social issues, if that's something that we need to address. So in my last CEO letter, the phrase ESG was not uttered once because it's been unfortunately politicized, weaponized, and all that. And yeah, our business was hurt. We lost $4 billion of mandates because of 90% misinformation.
But didn't you pick up any from people that like you more than?
Yeah, we did. I mean, so net last year, BlackRock raised a third of all asset flows in asset management. We were awarded $400 billion of net inflows. That's after netting the four. And in the United States, we were awarded over $200 billion in net flows. So we had one of the best years ever. But I'm ashamed of being part of this conversation.
So as you can see, even the crown prince of ESG, Larry Fink, is running away from it. The simple fact of the matter is consumers are rebelling. The very consumers that BlackRock and WEF want to control are pushing back and successfully controlling these corporations. As long as the dogs don't want to eat the dog food, there's nothing these companies can do to leverage their behavior. BlackRock, Disney, Bud Light, Target, they are all learning the hard way to the tune of billions of dollars lost that woke corporations are a business model disaster. The only inside trader tips that politicians are going to get from woke companies is dump their stock as fast as you can. Don't forget, click on that link below for a special free training on insider trading with my good friend Ross Givens. Don't wait. There are a limited number of seats left. It's almost completely booked. So click on that link below. Reserve your seat for a day that promises to change your life.